Sunshine Cathedral, sharing the light. I'm Reverend Robert Griffin, the academic dean here at Light University of the Sunshine Cathedral. And we invite you to visit with us through our website at www.sunshinecathedral.org. And in this month's segment for January, we're doing this in 4 parts. And here to introduce our guest for today is our senior pastor, Reverend Durrell Watkins.
Of course, you know Robert. He introduced himself there. He's on staff here at the Cathedral, and he is the Dean of Light University, which is our adult religious education program here at the Cathedral. Next to him is Reverend Michael Diaz. He's our volunteer coordinator, and he's also coordinating our Miami project. To my right is the Reverend Axel Schweigart. He is on the Metropolitan Community Church's Theologies team, and he's also the pastor of Salt of the Earth Metropolitan Community Church in Stuttgart, Germany. And so we have an interesting panel today, and an interesting topic, I think, because we're going to talk about theological education and the need for theological education, the importance of theological education, not only to train clergy, but then for clergy to share that theological education with their communities of faith. I should point out that we all sort of share, if it seems like we share a bias, this is what it is. Robert has his Master of Divinity degree from the Episcopal Divinity School. And so does Michael Diaz. He has his Master of Divinity degree from the Episcopal Divinity School. Robert is working on a doctorate degree at Florida Center for Theological Studies. Michael is applying to a doctor of ministry program even as we speak. Then my Master of Divinity is from Union Theological Seminary in New York, but I'm working on a doctor of ministry degree at, guess where, the Episcopal Divinity School. And Axel, you actually did your theological degree at Tübingen?
Tübingen University, yes.
A very famous German university. But he's working on his doctorate degree at the Episcopal Divinity School. And so if we all use similar phrases or whatever, it may be because we share that EDS connection at some point. So let's just jump in there. Because this is strangely controversial in some ways. MCC, Metropolitan Community Churches, is a new movement. We're only 40 years old. And because we're a new movement, we haven't been around for 1,500 years, like the Anglicans or the Lutherans or whatever. We haven't been around for 2,000 years, like the Eastern Orthodox and the Roman Catholics. We haven't even been around for 100 years, like the Pentecostals. And so we're very young. And so we're just growing into sort of academic maturity. Because in the beginning, we needed leaders. We just needed people who were willing to do that. And so our training was sort of fast-tracked. We had our own school for a while. We no longer do now. We have to go to other seminaries. But and we would accept transfer clergy no matter what their training was in the beginning. And so now, as we have tried to raise the standards, the academic standards for clergy, there's been some resistance because we didn't start out that way. And so why, though, is that important? Why is it that we want to be theologically educated? Why is it that we want these academic degrees? Is it about prestige, or is it about formation, or is it about confidence, or is it just about you can't teach what you don't know and you can't lead where you won't go? And so it's important to have had an extensive period of formation and training. Why is theological training so important? And let's start with the theologies team person.
Mm-hmm. I think theology is the main issue in the moment for our church, because theology, in the very sense of the word, is theos, God, and logos, the word. So talking about God, and I think that's what we are about to do. And I'm not talking about preaching. I'm not talking about counseling. I'm not talking about outreach. I'm talking about trying to understand as much as we can from our different traditions, from the Bible, to understand it as deep as we can, because only then we can give honor to what we are supposed to do as theologians, talk about God. So this is, for me, the main issue in the moment, to get a good, solid foundation for what we are doing as a church. And I believe, as the pastors and the leaders of our church, ordained and lay, we need to have a solid foundation, a good ground where we can stand on, and then work on the issues at hand. We've talked earlier about gay marriage and about situations of hate and misunderstanding in our communities. And I think the only way we can answer that is a solid foundation of possibilities to talk with those other leaders who have that kind of language, have that kind of education.
I remember my initial resistance to going back to seminary and getting an MDiv is that I already had a master's degree. I had an MA in theater, and I'd done my training for ministry from what we've been called the Samaritan Institute. That was our own school that we had back in those days. And it was a lot of classes, and it didn't end in a degree, but it was academic proficiencies for ordination. And I remember telling your elder, she wasn't your elder at the time, she wasn't an elder yet, but I remember telling at at a conference in Los Angeles, I think in 1999 or maybe 2001, but I said to the Reverend Glennis Shepherd, I said, no, I'm thinking about going back to school, but I would just hate to have to retake those classes I already took at Samaritan. And she said to me, it won't be the same. You're going to go deeper. You're going to learn more. She says you won't regret it. It's not going to be redundant information. Because you've had something, you may do a little better, but it won't bore you, and it'll stretch you even further. And she was absolutely right. Yes. It was the best thing I ever did for the congregations I serve is go back to school and get more education.
I totally agree to that, because I believe we need that much knowledge to be able to preach out of that much. Because
absolutely.
We have to tap into those different things, and at the time we learn it, we might think, oh, why do I have to know Hebrew or Latin or Greek? But there might come that one moment where I want to understand this one phrase in Hebrew, and then I go back to it, and suddenly it will change an awful lot. Same about church history, because if we talk about gay marriage, we have to understand how marriage came about in church history, and suddenly we get a totally different view on that, and it will change you.
At the times in the Middle Ages where same-gender partnerships were blessed in certain ways, liturgically, ritualistically, without controversy.
For myself, I caught the education bug when I became a Pentecostal when I was younger. And I remember going to a very conservative school, Oral Roberts University. But I wanted to be an evangelist and travel around the world and just preach religion to everyone, not without any, studying the Bible. I thought I knew the Bible already. And I remember having my first Synoptic Gospels class and learning about form criticism and redaction criticism. And I thought, this is not what I came to school for.
As a Pentecostal undergraduate.
As a Pentecostal undergraduate. And it just blew my mind that here I was. I thought I actually knew the Bible, all there was to know about the Bible. And there was so much I did not know. I didn't know the historical and social context of how the Gospels were written. And so when you try to preach from a proof text, from different texts, without knowing the context, you can be so off base.
And I think it is very dangerous when we think we know enough. Like, the more education I've gotten, the more education I've learned I need. Right. And so it also brings this sort of humility to know there's no such thing as knowing enough. You can't possibly know enough. You can only know more, and you need to know more because everyone you serve needs to know more, and they're looking to you.
Yeah. Well, my upbringing really was like out of the Baptist church. That if God calls you to ministry, then God has already equipped you. And I found that theory to be flawed as I grew. And so the more I reflect on that, that kind of upbringing, it's like I would not have traded a moment at this point in my life for my seminary experience. It was all those things that you mentioned earlier. It was about formation. It was about theological education. It was about collegiality. It was about pulling myself together to be an equipped person to do ministry in MCC.
Well, we're going to have to wrap up for now, but we'll continue this conversation next week. So why don't you?
And we want to thank you for joining us here on this segment of Sharing the Light, and we invite you to visit us on our website at www.sunshinecathedral.org. Or if you have questions, please write to me at robert@sunshinecathedral.org. And now for a final word from our senior pastor, Reverend Durrell Watkins.
We're so glad you've joined us for this discussion and for all of our discussions that we have here on Sharing the Light. We hope also if you're ever in the Fort Lauderdale area, you'll join us for worship at 9 o'clock or at 10:30 a.m. at 1480 Southwest 9th Avenue. We're also starting this month in January an evening service called Sunday at 6 p.m. also at the Cathedral. If you have questions, prayer requests, want to make donations, you can do all of that on the website as well. For now, we're wishing you blessings on your spiritual journey.